Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're doing something a little different. We're looking at a source that completely flips a universally accepted practice right on its head. We're unpacking a highly unconventional perspective on meditation. So if you think you know what meditation looks like, get ready to rethink the posture, the purpose, and really the very concept of internal power.
When I say the word meditation, what immediately pops into your head? You're probably picturing someone sitting on the floor, legs crossed, hands resting gently on their knees, with the palms facing up, right? Eyes closed, perfectly still. I mean, it's the global image of mindfulness. Okay, let's dive into this, because the unconventional perspective we're exploring today makes a radical pivot right out of the gate. The source material actually argues that this whole obsession with physical form, it's entirely missing the point.
So the traditional view demands the lotus pose, strict rules, and this intense effort to completely clear the mind. But the text asks, what if posture is utterly irrelevant? What if, to truly get comfortable, you shouldn't be twisting yourself into a pretzel, but instead you should just lie down? The speaker points out, quite bluntly actually, that forcing a rigid physical pose makes calming the mind much harder. The idea is that when you force yourself to sit uncomfortably and command your brain to be empty, all those unresolved past issues, your ego, and your life-stealing frustrations, they just violently bubble right up to the surface.
Part 1, The Trap of Dogma, Missing the Point.
And this brilliantly illustrates the danger of treating someone else's personal logic as some kind of inflexible rule book. Think about a roughly 100-year human lifespan. You got your early learning years, right? But then, according to the source, many spiritual seekers fall into a massive trap. They hear a mountain is highly spiritual, like Jijisan in South Korea, and they just go there. They spend 30, 40, or even 50 years stubbornly chasing these rigid practices, getting their ankles totally caught in dogma. The warning here is that by the time they reach the end of their lifespan, they've wasted their most precious decades, leaving their soul entirely unfulfilled. In fact, the text claims that forcing these methods isn't just a waste of time, it can actually be actively harmful. And this brings us to sagi, which essentially translates to a form of evil or negative energy. The idea is that if you stubbornly force a single meditation method for way too long without understanding its true purpose, you're actually inviting this negative force into your life. You know, you might feel a temporary high initially, sure, but ultimately forcing the practice invites chaos and can literally derail your life. Part 2, the listening meditation, a modern solution. So if sitting in a forest for 30 years is a trap, what exactly are we supposed to do instead? Well, the proposed solution in the source material is surprisingly simple. Put on a headset, lie down on your bed, and enter your world. Now, what's really interesting about this slide is this complete abandonment of forced posture. Want to lie on your bed? Do it. Prefer the floor? Hey, that's fine too. Just get perfectly comfortable, put your headphones on, and simply absorb information. The speaker argues that true meditation isn't about emptying your brain at all. It's about filling it.
Part 3, Building Internal Power, Filling the Soul.
So the crucial point is understanding why we're listening. Like, what is the ultimate purpose here? According to the text, it all comes down to naegong, or internal power. This is defined specifically as the density and the quality of the human soul. The source presents this fascinating philosophy that the human soul is essentially a god encased inside a heavy physical body for one very specific reason: to increase this internal density. And the way you increase it? It's entirely through absorbing knowledge. But, as you might guess, not all knowledge is created equal. There's a sharp distinction being made here. Low-density information is just your basic human logic, everyday facts, general knowledge. It's useful, sure, but spiritually speaking, it's weak. High-density information, on the other hand, is referred to as truth. And filling your soul with this high-density truth is what the speaker believes genuinely builds profound naegong. Part 4. Reaching true wisdom, the ultimate goal. Let's move to and see how this builds. So what happens when you successfully increase your soul's density through this continuous, comfortable learning? Well, the text describes a remarkable transformation. You start by comfortably absorbing knowledge. Then, over time, you sift through that to discover high-density truth. This actively increases your soul's density, your naegong. And finally, step 4, you achieve spontaneous wisdom. Notice that word, spontaneous. It isn't forced, it just happens automatically as a result of being completely full. There's a highly specific and honestly pretty vivid phrase used in the source for this moment of transformation: physics break open. It represents the critical peak where your soul density hits critical mass. The idea is that at this exact point, the mechanics of reality suddenly just make sense to you. True meditation and profound wisdom begin to flow completely naturally without absolutely any of the painful effort associated with traditional dogma. And what does that look like? Well, when your physics break open, your spiritually dense soul perceives the everyday world with a profoundly new perspective. For example, the text notes, you might look at a flower you've seen 100 times, but suddenly perceive its absolute deepest meaning. You grasp the hidden nature of mountains. And practically speaking, when people speak to you, you effortlessly and instantly understand their true underlying intentions. You're hearing with wisdom rather than just hearing with your ears. This all ties into a much larger cosmic timeline presented in the text. For some individuals, they're referred to as Hongik, they have exactly one lifetime left. There is a spiritual belief outlined here that building this internal density is the absolute final stage of human evolution. The concept is that once your soul is fully dense with truth, you shed the physical body forever and achieve ultimate liberation, known as Heital. You never, ever need to return to the heavy physical realm again. Which leaves us with this final, incredibly provocative question: are you forcing your meditation, or are you filling your soul? The ideas we've explored today challenge us to stop fighting our bodies, to step away from rigid traditions, and to start comfortably absorbing the truth around us. It really asks us to evaluate our own spiritual and intellectual intake. What kind of density are you building today? Thank you so much for joining me on The Explainer, and I'll leave you to think on that.